Did Dr. Joe Dispenza really marry us?
So we're going to tell that story today. Is that it?
I guess so.
His teacher was paralysis. Her teacher was addiction. With love, they found each other. You are here now for the Conscious Couple Podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Conscious Couple Podcast. As you can see, I still don't, well, if you're just listening to this, you can't see, but I still do not have a boom. So for those of you that are viewing in, you'll see that I still don't have my boom. And why is that?
It's a travesty. It's an absolute travesty. So listen, we're going to get right into this and no nonsense.
We're going to get right in today, people. We're going straight for it.
We're telling the story. We're telling the story of how it all happened.
Yes.
How are we actually married?
Are we actually married?
Who married us? Where did we get married?
So many questions.
All right, so I guess I'll start with the first one is we are actually not legally married because I couldn't get legally married because I was going through a hellacious divorce.
Very true. Facts.
But better, we were spiritually married. So where do we start with this?
Yeah,
story?
so again, I
just
want to thank everybody again for tuning in.
Yes.
First and foremost, thank you again
so
for
much.
tuning in. We are constantly wanting to hear from you. What do you like? What do you not like?
What questions?
What questions do you have?
Yes.
What episodes would you like us to do? What are your biggest deep desires in life? How do you want us to help you? How can we add value to your
And
journey?
of course, to always like and subscribe to the channel. If you do like this, this is a learning curve for us.
Yes,
we are
sure.
used to talking to people that are in our courses on our screens.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun there. We uncover a lot of things, and it's a place where people can be open and vulnerable. So we always answer them.
Yes.
So we're just talking to a screen, and it's a little different for us.
It is a little different.
We want it to flow.
Yeah.
And to and
to provide value.
Yeah. So I guess the start of it should be where this, idea or this download or whatever you want to call it showed up. And
I think it needs to go back beyond that because they don't even know what download that you're referring to. So are you going to start where we met initially?
Yes.
Okay.
So we met in Indian Wells, California. It was a Dr. Joe workshop that a 7-day, right?
4-day.
Oh, it's a 4-day. It was a 4-day. It felt like 15-day, but it was a 4-day.
It was before. He has 7 days now. He doesn't do the 4 days anymore.
And I was a volunteer. I really wasn't planning on going, to be honest. And it was a very difficult time for me. So I really wanted to go. I had things happen to me in previous events that really opened me up. So I was dealing with the two sides of Scott, the side that opened up, and I guess the best way to say it is I opened my heart, and the other part, which is the habitual Scott, which is the ego and dealing with that. And I had, at the very last minute, was accepted to volunteer at this workshop, and I said I was going to go, and I was with, at the time, my previous wife, and I was kind of finding myself, and we'll get into those in another episode as far as how to navigate that
absolutely.
when you are coming up against yourself, I guess.
And when you're in a relationship where you're going down a spiritual conscious journey, your partner
because it is
isn't.
A big story. It's a big story for anyone that is
it's what I do in my course
been
for women.
going down this. It is such a big opening of how do you deal with that, and we will definitely get into that. Today it's mainly just to tell this story.
Yeah.
So I don't even know which one. Oh, so Indian Wells. I'm going to tell you the first time we had I think in Facebook, I had posted my story.
I have
You
a
had
picture of
answered
it.
it. I think we
Yeah.
had mentioned that before.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I really saw you, we met, we said hello, just like everybody else. And then I remember I was giving out there were numbers that represented chairs, and I think there was
Coins, little coins.
there were little coins, and I had a sack full of them. As a volunteer, I gave them out to the people that were getting their heart math. It was for heart math measurement.
It was.
Correct?
It was. Yes. So what Dr. Joe used to do at these events was all kinds of scientific studies, and one of them is pioneered by the Heart Math Institute, which is an amazing institute, but it basically measures heart coherence. And so he would pick the first 2 rows. I mean,
it was like 40, maybe 40, 50,
there's
60
like,
people.
900, 1,000 people that attend.
So
and
it was quite a few people.
The first 2 rows would get this special bag to pick from because whatever coin that you picked would coincide with the chair that you had to
so
sit
they
in.
were numbered. So I am giving out these coins, and I was going in the lobby and yelling and being me, the goofball, and kind of, making jokes about it, but I would say heart math. I actually called it heart map because I didn't know. And I would have people, they would go into the bag, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You can't just reach into the bag.
Right.
You got to tell me the number that you're going to pick. I kind of made it a game, and it was fun. And I got people that got pretty close. And, like I remember one person was 27, they got 24. And I'm like, oh, you're close, but you're not good enough. So keep trying. And then you came along.
Then I came along.
And I said, okay, so pick your number. And she reached in the bag. I said, no. You have to tell me the number that you were going to pick. And you picked.
I closed my eyes, and the first number that popped into my mind was number 1.
And she pulled out number 1.
Number 1.
That's an absolute true story.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, whoa,
I was first in line to be heart mapped that day.
And that kind of, and in that moment, it was like that really was the first step to, kind of who we are now.
Yeah.
So then there was the walking meditation. And I think it might have been the first one. I was asked to volunteer and walk with Carol. And that's a whole nother story, but it was one of the most beautiful moments of watching somebody open up. I was able to be with her when she had a huge awakening. In this walking meditation, she had Parkinson's, and I had to walk with her, and it was another amazing story that really had an impact on my life. And then after, I think it was the second meditation that I got to do the meditation. So I'm out there 6:00 in the morning in Palm Springs, the desert, and on a golf course. And I come out of my meditation, and it was fabulous. It was great. And the thing that impacted me the most was at the end of the meditation, I was laying down in the grass, and I got up, and I was just looking at all the people. And it was just, I was witnessing love. I was witnessing people falling in love with themselves. And it was one of the most beautiful moments because the sun was just starting to come up. And, Dr. Joe was walking around and people were laying on the ground and he was doing his thing. And I was just witnessing it all. And then I put on my playlist. I would always have 5 songs, which we'll talk about that too, that I just felt they would always bring me to my heart. And I am walking off of the golf course, and at the start of the golf course there's a tee box, and as I walk up I see this figure standing, and the sun was just coming up to where it lit this person from behind, and I could see that they were facing me, but the sun lit them up from behind, and I just had this urge, and I went up and I hugged this person, and ultimately that person was you.
Me. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you my version
of
it up to that moment. My morning.
We were in the tar pits.
We're in the tar pits?
Yeah. I was trying to be funny, obviously.
It didn't work, honey, for once. Usually it works.
Right, your story is.
So I'm going to tell you my end of that up until that moment that we reached right there, which was, walking meditation. Obviously, you were had been going through your stuff in your marriage. I'd been going through my stuff. Very similar, obviously, when you, and tons of people's stories when you start going down this path of transformation and your partner doesn't. So that morning, I was really pissed off that I was there at 6 a.m. and didn't want to go do this stupid walking meditation and didn't, just wanted to go home and didn't want to be where I was at, which later I would learn is actually fuel for the fire to move those emotions up and out. So started the meditation and actually put all that energy and frustration and anger into it. And he walked us through this breathing exercise. And I, been doing the work for, almost a year at that point, never really had a huge experience. But I think, I was in the space that I was tired of just living the life that I was living. So anyway, go into the meditation, my head goes back. I have energy, I've talked about in other episodes, move through me. I knew that the reason why that experience for me was so big is because I then had no doubt it was real.
Yeah.
The moment it moved through me, for a year, I had hoped it was real. I had wanted something to happen, but I didn't. Of course, we all doubt, right? And so when that energy moved through me and completely took me over, I had no control, but it fundamentally shifted me because I knew it was real. And I remember opening my eyes after it happened. It was like an hour of just shaking and crying and, like being plugged into an electrical socket. And all I wanted to do was to tell somebody. I just wanted to find my roommate because she was really the only person that I really knew and tell her it's real. It happened. So I get up to go find her. And it's a huge golf course. It's in Indian Wells.
Yeah,
it's this
big.
massive
1,000
golf
people.
course, 1,000 people. And I go to start walking. I'm like all disheveled and just like, holy shit. Like imagine if you had multiple orgasms for like an hour. That's literally how I felt. And so I wanted to tell someone. So I start walking towards her and I see this person walking towards me and couldn't really make you out right away. But as you got closer, I recognized you because we had had a few interactions and you grabbed me and we hugged. And would you like to share
Correct.
what happened in that hug?
Well, it was very interesting.
It was very interesting. On
So
the
to
tee-box.
preface that, the relationship I had before, and keep in mind, I was in at this particular time. It wasn't necessarily about the relationship. It was about me. It was about me becoming or feeling something that I did not recognize, but it felt amazing. It just, I don't know how to describe it. But when all this time in this relationship, and a very long relationship, and a very beautiful person, and I just felt every time I tried to get close, it seemed to backfire on me. And I brought her to a Dr. Joe progressive, and I thought, surely she'll get it. And asked her to go to this one. She said no. And I knew then that I thought it was the end of my Dr. Joe and awakening moment. I really did, because I never thought of leaving. I never had that. And when I hugged you, it was a remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was like, I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a connection, and I remember the thing that gave that away. It was not a hug, it was a double hug.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hugged you,
Mm-hmm.
and then it felt so familiar and comfortable.
Yeah.
I hugged you again.
Yeah.
And it was different.
Yeah.
And I said, who is this person?
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And that really kind of launched
Yeah.
the whole life of us and how we opened up to each other, because then it became a whole thing of, you go through this awakening and all you want to do is you want to share it with somebody.
Yeah.
You want to experience, you want the experience to come back to you by someone else who has experienced it, because then it solidifies that, oh my God, it's real.
Yeah.
I met God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think having that, but with you, it was different.
Yeah.
It was, oh my God, where have you been?
Yeah.
And it became that over the next, I'd say month, right? And, led us to, leaving our
Yeah.
lives. I mean, not just marriages. It led us to leaving our lives to then decide, because for me it was, I have to write this book.
Yeah.
I have to write Finding Ugly. I knew it. I was told it. I saw it. And I will never be able to be this person that I am now if I stay here.
Yeah.
Stay in my life.
Yeah.
So that kind of took that. So this moment really kind of etched in our minds.
100%.
I don't know where we were. I think we were at another Dr. Joe workshop, a 7-day. I think it was maybe
4. 3
Santa
days.
Fe or
Oh, yes.
Cancun, one of them. And
I don't know where you're going with this. That's what
well,
are you
I'm
talking
telling
about?
the story of how it all transpired, because we're here to answer a question. Did Dr. Joe marry us?
Right. I didn't know where you were going next,
so let
honey.
me finish the story.
Well, so let me say, I have to add this.
Yes, go,
I
please.
remember a friend. Well, she became a friend in the early part of my journey because, nobody else was talking about this stuff. And I remember before I went, she told me this, because it was my first advanced retreat, my first 4 days. And she said, this will be a dividing line. This workshop will be a dividing line between, like, basically the beginning of this and then the after of this, where your life will fundamentally, like, be shifted by this point in your life. I remember her telling me that before I left. And I would say, for sure, for both of us, that workshop was a defining point.
Well, I'll tell you what
us.
it was for me. It's when I died.
Yeah.
And
Ditto.
when I really do mean
Same.
that when I say that I had actually asked friends of mine in the Dr. Joe community, I think I died.
Yeah.
And I think, if when we eventually tell the story of the tragedy of my best friend, it wasn't him that drowned, it was me.
Right.
And this was my escort. This was my angel that I am supposed to follow to review my life or whatever. And I really had that, like, that was a real thing for me. I really believed, like, oh my God, maybe I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah. So fast forward, to Portland? Is that
and
where
this
we're
is
going?
all happening in 2017?
This was in 2017. Yeah.
So Portland.
So were we fast?
Maybe it was Portland. I'm not sure.
It was Portland.
But anyway, it doesn't matter where
it was absolutely Portland. I am certain of this.
That's great. That's fantastic.
So
all right,
so
we're
we're
now
fast.
it doesn't matter the city.
Right. So we fast forward. Gosh, 2 years later.
2 years later, we're in a meditation.
Yeah, at another event. Obviously,
event.
we've lived our lives together
Yes,
now.
we are together. Yes.
Doing our thing, helping people, living our lives.
You've probably already moved through your divorce.
I was
struggling.
I was
time,
through my divorce
and
very quickly.
I was in a meditation, and I had this. I hate saying download, but okay. So it's a download.
Yeah.
It's information that comes into my head that becomes very real.
Inspiration.
It's almost like a
You
dream,
can call it inspiration.
but you're awake during it, which is very interesting. So those who haven't had that happen, it is like you are dreaming. I guess you would call it a lucid dream because you are awake, right? So I was awake and I was having this, and I was standing on a tee box, and I was standing in front of her, and it was Indian Wells, California. And I knew it because it was where we met, and we were being married, and there was somebody marrying us. And I remember the person, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Dr. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to marry us. So anyway, we come out of this meditation. I come out of this meditation, and I tell her, I think we're supposed to get married in Indian Wells on the tee box.
That's not what you said.
It's not what I said. I didn't say that at all.
No, you
Why
actually,
would I just say that?
No, I mean, that wasn't even in your. It wasn't. Indian Wells wasn't even in your. You
Okay.
just said for some reason I saw us getting married on a tee
did say
box, and I think you said Dr. Joe was marrying us.
I know I said Indian Wells. That's the most important. That's one of the most important parts of the story.
We'll give it to
Yes. See, we disagree. It's done. It's over.
I do remember specifically the tee box, and we were kind of like, I wonder what that means. Yeah.
On a golf course.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end of this event, Joe goes up there and he's going on about, all the stuff that he talks about. And then he said, and here are our next events coming up. And
yeah. So for those of you that don't know, at the end of 7 days, I'm just giving people frames of reference,
what
honey,
else? Absolutely.
so they know. So at the end of these events, at the end of these 7 days, he'll usually always post on the screen the upcoming events. At that time, I think he was doing them like every month, and they were all over the place.
And they were all 7 days.
And they were all 7 days, but they were usually always at new places. Like typically,
except Grand View, except Cancun.
Except Cancun and Grand Vilas. That was really the only place that he had repeated at. Most of the other places were always new, in a new country, in a new city, wherever. So it was never at repeated places, typically except for Cancun, Mexico. And so at the end of those 7 days, he usually lists on the thing the upcoming 5 that with dates that they're planning on. They're not opening them for registration yet, but these are where they plan on doing them and the dates for that. And so I think, you had this meditation the day before the last day or something. And so we're getting ready to head out because we usually didn't stay all the way to the end because we had been to quite a few by then. And he puts the locations and the dates up. And what was on the screen, honey?
Cincinnati, Ohio. No, it was Indian Wells, obviously. That was a long and explanatory.
Some people like to know the frame.
Okay, I know. I apologize.
The reference.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's Indian Wells, California, and I knew
Wells.
right then.
Yeah.
This is where this is supposed to happen. Now, obviously, I couldn't get legally married, but we wanted to have a spiritual ceremony with all of our friends at some point.
Yeah.
And the people that had been on this journey with us, because I don't know how it is now, but back then it was a very tight community.
Yes.
And a very beautiful, so loving and small community.
Yeah.
Because we all felt like we were insane. we all felt like we were being tested, and it really was like the true
black
start.
sheep of the world.
Yeah, it really was the true start.
Yeah.
And
those people really became our family.
It really was a family because we had lost a lot of ours.
Yeah.
And for all of us did. So anyway, I had that, and we planned it, and then we actually sent emails.
We did. So that was
Right?
in July. That happened in July at the Portland workshop. Wink, wink. And so when he said that, we were like, well, of course, this is obviously where this has to be. And so we'd started talking about it, and we discussed, well, there was somebody marrying us. And since we know that this isn't a legal thing, we don't need like an actual, whatever they call them, officiant to marry us.
Yeah, because otherwise I would have to move to Utah.
You would.
Because I would add 2
You would.
And there were some people who thought I was actually married.
Yeah. And so we started discussing, well, what if we asked Dr. Joe? I mean, our journey did start with him, and how, special would that be to share that moment with the person really that brought us together and, helped us to create these amazing lives that we get to live and got to live and celebrate our love for each other. So we wrote letters. You wrote a letter. I wrote a letter, and we gave it to a friend of ours to pass along to Mr. Dispenza.
A very close
friend.
A close friend and a close person to Dr. Joe.
Yeah. So in the meantime, we're planning and, excited no matter what. And everything went so smoothly.
Perfectly.
Everything. It was like, we called the resort, and they're like, oh, you can have this beautiful spot. It wasn't, exactly where we hugged. It was on another part, which was even more beautiful.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
And like for, super cheap.
Oh, it was ridiculous. It was $300.
I think it was $200
because,
actually.
I mean, this place
so cheap.
is, I can't even imagine
it's gorgeous.
What it would cost. And we didn't have it.
Yeah.
So we didn't know. And I just said, listen, we're just going to do this. We're just going to go up there. We're going to stand there. And we're not going to have a whole thing. We're just going to have him, spiritually bond us.
Yeah.
And it's going to be super low key, like a bunch of people just going out on the tee box and standing and have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So we had mentioned this to, the people there, and they said, oh, we can do this. And we said, this is what we want. And they said, listen, no problem. What we'll do is we'll give you 2 very large golf carts, and we will shuttle people from the hotel onto the golf course. But we have the perfect place to do this, and you have to do it here. And we really want to, but as they said, well, that's fine, but you understand there's going to be golfers teeing off. And we're like, okay. And they did the whole thing. I think it was $300.
I think it was $200. It was so cheap.
It was so cheap. It was so ridiculous because we didn't have anything. Yeah. We really didn't have anything. So we then get Dr. Joe's the day, probably an hour before I see Ronnie, who is Dr. Joe's photographer. I said, Ronnie, could you take some pictures? And he said, I would love to do that. And I said, I want to pay you what? And I think it was $100, right? And he took like 1,000 pictures. It was insane. So many,
which, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see right now.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Of all
some of them,
the amazing day.
So then, should we really get down to the how it all went down? Because we did have a conversation with Joe.
We did.
And he said, so what is and it was on the cruise. Yeah. And he said, so what are you thinking? And we're like, listen, first off, you don't need to get anything. Please don't do anything like that. You can't get ordained. You don't need anything like that. He goes, I think I could really do this. Right.
Yeah.
So we had dinner and we'll do another one on that.
Yeah.
And there was also somebody else in the running in case Dr. Joe didn't want to do that. That was one of the most, if I'm going to cry if I talk about her.
Are you going to cry, honey?
I am. So you tell it.
Okay. Well, he had stiff competition, Joe
and
Dispenza.
I told him this.
He had stiff competition, and that was our to say friend. I don't know. That's such a it's like saying, oh, we're in love. It's such a loose word that doesn't quite encompass the amount of love that we have for this woman. But it was Rudrani Brand, which those of you who just listened to this episode for the first time are going to have no idea who Rudrani Brand is. But she is this short New Yorker. She's in her 70s.
Danny DeVito in drag.
And she is the most loving,
vibrant,
heart-centered, vibrant, funny,
beautiful,
amazing souls that you will literally ever meet in your life, literally. And, if you want to know, if you want to get a little taste for the vibrancy of this woman, she has, I think she told me, the most watched Dr. Joe Dispenza testimonial on YouTube. So
that's over now.
That's
when there was 15.
Dr. Joe
15
Dispenza
testimonials.
Rudrani Brand. And that will give you a little taste of who this amazing woman is. And she was so dear to our hearts, and we loved her so much. So that was the competition.
And obviously still do.
Yeah. So
that was the competition. So
yeah.
At this dinner, and I'm like, whoa, hold on, Dispenza, don't get a hold of yourself because you have competition.
Yeah.
And that is Rudrani Brand.
That's
and
Rudrani.
I remember Andrew, right? I think it was Andrew. And he said, oh, don't look like you're doing it.
Yeah. It was great. It was great fun. And so fast forward like a month and a half later, it was kind of up in the air. They were going to have to go through some legalities. And then we ended up going to another workshop after that and found out that just because of some legal stuff and technical stuff, he
couldn't do it. And he
not
had to leave.
Going to be able to do it. So the answer to your question is
actually
Dr. Joe.
It was our question. They didn't ask it. It was our question.
So honey, did Dr. Joe Dispenza marry us?
No, he did not.
He did not.
Anyway, he wasn't even there. But the one thing that I didn't want it to be about Dr. Joe, because here's the one thing. If people found out, because it was the end.
Yeah, so set it up for him. Set up the whole scene for him.
Yeah, it was the end of the workshop. It was the day after the workshop ended. And a lot of people stay. And we didn't want all these people kind of crashing our wedding. We did have a reception.
We did.
And, it was basically just a party. And there was only a certain amount of people that could be there. It was a whole thing. So we didn't want a whole bunch of people coming and crashing crashing it.
Actually, that's only halfway true because we actually invited people throughout the week.
Oh, we actually did.
That we met there.
We
that
did.
was the most magical thing.
It really
let me set this up a little bit better than you did.
Oh,
you
I failed.
just like dove right in for the orgasm
diver.
and didn't like prepare for the
No foreplay.
no foreplay. There was
Got it.
no foreplay there.
10-4.
So we find out in December that Rudrani was going to marry us, which we were so ecstatic and excited for. And of course, it was only fitting that it was her to do it. It was really, truly only fitting. So we register for this event. We go back now almost 2.5 years later. We go through this beautiful 7-day event. We have people, I mean, this is how amazing this community is. We have friends of ours that we met within the community. I say friends, but like I said, more like family, that actually came from Scotland, that came from all over the U.S.
They came from
from
all over the world.
England.
It came from inside.
All over
came
the
from
world,
England,
not to go to the workshop, just to come to
California,
our
to be there for us.
To be there for us for our celebration
Yes,
of
our dearest
life.
friends.
Dearest,
and it was because
oh my
they
gosh.
knew.
Yeah.
They knew what it was.
Yes.
They knew
Yes.
what it meant.
Yeah.
And Amy and everybody.
Everybody.
And
Yeah.
it was. So we had no clue of how this was all going to go. We had an idea. Okay, it's going to happen on this lawn.
And the day after the workshop
Pick the
was
song
over.
that she's going to get picked up, drive up in a golf cart. And these were like really extended golf carts.
Yeah.
Pull up on the golf cart. And she's going to come walking up to this song. And we bought on Amazon, a little amplifier and a microphone for Rudrani.
It looked like one of those kids.
It did. It looked like a
one of
little
those
kid's
that
like,
they
hey,
carry
be back
around.
to pick you up later.
Yeah.
So
It was perfect.
we are, I'm waiting for her. Meanwhile, Rudrani is having a panic attack, a full blown out panic attack. And she had all her notes of what she was going to say, and she deleted them all from her phone by mistake.
So Rudrani.
Thank God, Aaron
Yes.
knows Rudrani so well
Our friend. Yes.
that as soon as Rudrani told her she had these notes, she said, you need to send them to me right now. And she did, thank God.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Rudrani is sitting there. She is trying to breathe. Everybody's standing around her because we didn't have chairs set up. We were just going to all stand. And this moment of, in a panic attack, everybody trying to get her to breathe and waving, fans in her face. And I just stand over her and I said, this is exactly how I saw it happening. Exactly. And I just laughed and I said, honey, and I reached over her, I kissed her on the cheek and I said, you're going to fucking kill it. You're going to kill it.
And she did.
I have all the trust in you.
And she did. She did.
She did.
She killed it.
So
It was amazing.
M comes walking up. There's Rudrani sitting there with her little clown nose
Yes,
on.
of course.
That's a whole nother story.
You'll see the picture right now.
And the M comes walking up to our song, Dan and Shay. I wanted Luke Bryan. What's the Luke Bryan song? Make it for me. Shake It For Me.
Yeah.
I wanted her to walk up
No,
to
he
Shake
did
It
not.
For
He's
Me
lying.
from Luke Bryan.
He's
I'm not a country guy, by the way.
Yes,
but
you are. You
I kind
listen
of
to
do.
country
like
a
it.
lot.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we had Dan and Shay,
Dan and
breathless.
Shay. Speechless.
Speechless,
but
breathless,
Close
same
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
And
It was beautiful.
then Rudrani, we had no clue. And
Yeah,
then
it was a
Rudrani
surprise.
did one of the most beautiful things. We actually incorporate this, we stole this,
Yeah.
into our workshops now,
Yeah.
where she had everybody stand in a circle. And I'm going to say there was probably maybe 50, 70 people.
50 probably. And
Little more.
and keep in mind, some of those people we literally just met at
Some
the
just
workshop
met.
that we invited.
Yeah.
We're like, please come and
Please
join
come
us
and
in
enjoy
a
the day.
celebration of love.
Yeah,
like
enjoy the
that's
day.
what this is
It
about.
was amazing,
So-
including Ronnie, the photographer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had our closest people
Oh, yeah.
there, but we we just wanted everybody to come.
So we're standing there in front of her. The vows, I didn't write anything down because I am that way. I want it to come out of my heart, and I didn't want to do that. She had hers written down. She gave
Of
her
course
vows.
I did.
I gave
Of course you didn't. Of
I
course
gave mine
did.
and crushed it. Crushed it. Anyway, Rudrani takes our rings and she has everybody stand in a circle. And we stand in the center of this circle. And again, it's probably 50, probably more people. It was a lot. It was a big circle. It took a long time.
It did take a long time.
And she gave this speech, which was amazing. And she said, basically, so now I'm going to hand these rings to each one of you. And you are going to bless them. And after, they will come back and we will give the rings to them. So here are all these people and this music in the background, and they're all looking at us, holding these rings to their hearts, and they're praying over them. They're meditating over them.
Yeah.
They're just loving them. Yeah. And we are in absolute tears. And
yeah. It was.
Dead cats. And I remember the one picture I remember more than most is obviously Cy.
Yes.
Obviously
that's
Estelle.
That's yes.
Simon and Estelle.
Yeah.
But Amy.
Yeah.
And she.
Yeah. Yeah. Which you'll see it right here, right now. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's really
Dead
crying.
cats. Cut Isaiah. Anyway, her holding up the ring.
Yeah.
And holding it like this, like, because she was. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isaiah, you're gonna have to cut this out, please. Yes. Anyway, no, you don't.
It was
very brutal.
A very special celebration.
It was
ceremony, and every single person that was there added so much love to it. Yeah. It was just it was beyond magical. Yep. Everything worked out perfect. Went so smoothly. There was no stress. It was just perfect. And then we had a little celebration after with, of course, lots of dancing and inviting more people in to dance. And it was amazing. It was perfect. It was everything that I could have ever wanted. And, I think we're both of the mind that we don't need a piece of paper to say that our hearts will unite for forever.
No, and we knew. I mean, obviously we knew we would have a ceremony because none of our kids were there. Yeah. And we wanted to have a special ceremony so our kids could be there with us, all of them. Yeah. And that was such a big deal for us. So we just wanted to kind of make this very low key, but it really was one of the most beautiful things I've ever been a part of in my entire life.
Well, it was a celebration of love. It wasn't, I think why it was so special was not because it was you and me, but because it was a community that we had really came together, you and I, from the beginning. And in such celebration of all of that community is just, it supported you and I as we went through some really tough things in those 2 years prior.
Really, really difficult.
Losing a lot of people and
so many people,
but gaining so many, and that was, it was like,
and it was understood. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, they saw it. Yeah. They saw it when a lot of people on the outside couldn't, right. And even our kids, at times, obviously, divorce is really difficult on kids. So it was really, really difficult in those, but we always had each other. Yes. And then when all these other people kind of stood and surrounded us. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it felt like this is our army, for lack of
tribe, whatever
a love
word,
army, for
love
lack
army,
of a better word, and to watch all these people holding these rings and crying. I mean, I just remember everybody crying, and it was just an amazing moment. And then after that, the world shut down. Because this all happened in February. Yeah,
it was in February of 2020.
Right.
And a month later, the entire world shut down, and that was the last workshop we went to. Perfect. Couldn't have made it
the last one
better.
I think it was the last one he did.
Last one. Yeah, that was the last one he did for a long time. So
whatever.
It was no, Dr. Joe did not marry us, but it is, because of him being so brave in his life and putting this word out there to people and helping people awaken up, and the knowledge and the experiences that we were able to come together and find ourselves first and foremost, find our own hearts and loves for ourselves, and then have that be reflected in that. And, we just wanted to I think it was like to signify that really truly the love, not just like I said between you and me, of course, but that entire process and community and all of it. So it was a beautiful day, obviously a day we'll never ever forget. And here we are.
Yeah, the $200 wedding.
The $200 wedding. Yes, and the most love.
The $200 non-wedding.
Yes, the $200.
So yeah, we are still living in sin.
Yeah,
we are not married.
We're not married.
And but we will be.
Yeah.
We will be. When all our chillins are together.
Yeah, we're spiritually married. So that's our story on that for this episode. We kept it under an hour. Yay for us. Super excited about that.
40 minutes.
And listen, that was a really fun episode, just so you guys kind of know our love story and what happened and how that happened. But, we are going to be diving deeper into some of the things that we talked about and just kind of skimmed over on this episode, which is how to navigate leaving a marriage or leaving a relationship after having an awakening, how to navigate losing people, how to navigate all of those things, because
how to navigate yourself,
how to fall in love with yourself first before attracting that. Like all of these things we're going to be covering. So thank you for tuning into this episode and having fun with us and listening to our little love story, because it is absolutely a love story, a beautiful love story.
It's Romeo and Juliet.
It is kind of a modern day Romeo and Juliet. Truthfully, we always say there was no dating with us. There was no dating. It was like, oh, okay, we found each other. Like there was no awkward learning about it. It just was.
I remember
it just
somebody said to me, but you don't even know this person. And I thought, oh my God, I know this person more than I have ever known anybody myself.
My entire life.
Almost myself.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that clear.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
So.
Better than anyone.
And
so,
here we are.
Unmarried,
living in sin.
Unmarried, living in sin.
Having children.
With our Murphy
we didn't
man.
Have any children,
all right, guys.
If that happens, now that's a fucking story.
Right.
Because that would be an absolute miracle. And no, we're not having any.
No, we have one
a
right
dog.
there. Right there. He's right there.
He is. He's over there. He's just living his
thanks
little life.
for tuning in and listening to our love story. And stay tuned for more episodes to come where we really start diving deep into all these things that are really important in your guys' lives and how to navigate them the way that we've been able to and create the life we have. So remember, like and subscribe.
Please.
If you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on some kind of platform that it's audio only, you can rate and review our episode as well. And comment on whatever platform and let us know what you want to hear more of and what you liked.
And you know how we're going to end this?
How are we going to end this?
You know how we're going to end this, honey?
No.
Joe, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We love you. Peace out.